Judge Pirro did ask the president about the reports that he requested James Comey's loyalty shortly after inauguration.
Loyalty to the country, loyalty to the United States is important. You know, I mean, it depends on how you define loyalty. Number one. Number two, I don't know how that got there, because I didn't ask that question.
What about the idea that in a tweet you said that there might be tape recordings?
Well, that I can't talk about. I won't talk about that. All I want is for Comey to be honest, and I hope he will be, and I'm sure he will be, I hope.
Eric, so much here, so much. Was it a threat? Was it a statement of fact? I mean, what's your take?
So immediately when he tweeted that this morning, I put it up, I retweeted it and said, hey, look at this. This is very interesting. I think what Trump is basically saying is he's very confident in what he said and what his people have said about what went on with James Comey. That James Comey said, in fact, to him, no, we're not investigating you, so let's move on. Yet the media wants to continue to harp on this, continue to play this up. Again, show me one shred of evidence that ties Donald Trump to any collusion. You can't do it. And if the president has lost trust and faith in his FBI director, that FBI director serves at the pleasure of the president, it's time for him to go. And it is time for him to go. I think he did everything constitutionally and ethically right.
Okay.
Just to tweet that and then to say I don't want to talk about it, always a good rule that if you don't want to talk about it, don't broadcast it out to millions upon millions of people.
So don't talk about it if you don't want to talk about it?
Don't tweet it if you don't want to talk about it, especially if you have millions and millions of followers. That's just kind of how I feel. Why would you tweet it if you didn't want to talk about it?
So much more.
Maybe he wanted someone to subpoena some tapes if there are any, and that would exonerate everything.
I feel like that can be said in a text message, though.
Well, I think we're going to have a lot more to come on this for sure. And speaking of it, let's meet today's specialist. He is the former political editor at the Washington Examiner. He's also the co-host of the Fox News podcast, Perino and Steigerwald, I'll Tell You What. And he's the politics editor at Fox News Channel. But he specializes in making the best chicken wings this side of Triadelphia, West Virginia. True. Chris Steigerwald is here. And she's the host of the Laura Ingraham Radio Show, the editor and co-founder of LifeZet.com, a cultural and political website. And her upcoming book is titled Billionaire at the Barricades, The Populace versus the Establishment from Reagan to Trump. But she specializes in everything cultural and political. Laura Ingraham is here. All right, so I'm going to go back to this, Laura, this issue of whether or not it was a threat, whether or not it was simply a statement of fact. And I'm going to leave that for other people to debate. I'm going to take it at face value as a statement of fact. But is it presidential? Is it appropriate for the president to even be talking about it at all?
Well, I think it's long since passed, you know, the conversation of whether Donald Trump is going to conform to some old notion of this is what presidents do. He's going to do what he's going to do. That's what he's always done. He's 70 years old. That's not going to change. I do think it's interesting that he put the word tapes in quotes. Not a lot of people have talked about that today. Donald Trump has had a way throughout the campaign and even into this presidency of getting people to talk about what he wants them to talk about. And everybody's been obsessed with this idea of the tapes. They're asking, Neil Cavuto was asking Alan Dershowitz last hour about, well, is this even illegal? And Dershowitz is like, no, it's actually totally legal in D.C. It's only a one-party consent. So everyone's focused on that. Meanwhile, the concern about what's happened in Washington with the issues that people care about, of course, health care, tax reform, the deregulatory moves that Trump has made, all of those are very positive. But Trump has gotten everybody talking about this tapes thing. I would doubt there are tapes in the Oval Office or wherever he met with Comey or the dinner, wherever he had dinner with him. Who knows? But I don't think he put the word tapes in quotes by accident. I actually think he did that for a reason.
How about, was it iPhone recording or what?
He did the same.
I don't think so.
I had the same thought, and he did exactly the same thing when he was talking about Obama tapped him.
Yeah.
He put tapped in quotes, and that means it didn't happen. And I assume that it didn't happen in this case, or the president better hope that he didn't make a mistake this morning and announce that there was a recording system in the White House, or the subpoenas will be stacking up outside the White House door. So I'm sure. And by the way, they're also not talking about the Russia stuff, and they're not talking about what he said to Lester Holt yesterday. So this, I'm perfectly willing to believe, is a canard.
It's a clear controlling of the narrative, Eric. And call me crazy, but if I call a customer service hotline, they're recording. So actually, I didn't think it was that far out of bounds. Seriously, that there would be, I would presume, Lord, that they're recording in the White House.
I also find it very interesting that James Comey, who was called to testify on Tuesday, just said, no, not going to do it. I think this is very, very interesting. I think this is Donald Trump saying, hey, stay on this. There's more to it. and I will exonerate all the things he's saying about what went back and forth between Comey and Donald Trump.
Think of the Comey thing for just a minute. Comey has rushed to the cameras back in July. He sent the big memo in October, then a follow-up memo. Oh, it wasn't really anything about the Weiner thing. Then he testifies before Congress, and suddenly the cat's got his tongue. Yeah. Doesn't anyone find that interesting? A closed-door session of Congress. Former FBI director, all this news out there that apparently he can correct all this because Donald Trump's, according to his sources or his people he's told this to contemporaneously, that Trump is all wrong about this. So suddenly he's reticent to speak. That's very interesting.
Are you surprised that Comey's declining to testify? Because I was surprised that he's declining to testify.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised by it, honestly. Why wouldn't he? But then again, it just makes everything so much more confusing. I want to know what he knows so badly. I really want to hear from him. I want to hear from Susan Rice. There's so many people that I want to hear from that apparently we're just never going to get to hear from.
Yeah.
But the investigation's going to continue with him or without him.
Yeah.
And maybe we will hear from him if Trump keeps threat. I think it was a threat. It was a veiled threat. I don't know if it was a serious threat, but the way the sentence was structured was obviously a threat.
This is New York bravado.
Right,
this is the bravado of Donald Trump. We saw this during the campaign. I'm stunned that everybody's surprised.
But it's bizarre.
Even in a New York bravado type of way, you don't go there unless you're pretty darn sure you're going to win if anyone does call and subpoena.
I think he's confident there's no collusion with Russia. I think he's confident he's not under investigation. I think pretty much everybody I've talked to, my sources in law enforcement, he's not under investigation, personal investigation. I'm sure the associates of Trump are under investigation. I think he's extremely confident about that.
Speaking of Russia, how many retweets and likes his tweets get?
I'm sure that he probably is interested in it.
I think he does.